Writing an RPG, something that people from the get-go comes to a genre just assume they have to do. So then they get to put guts in their heads. At some point, it'll just halt everything just to mindlessly fight enemies over and over. There are some people who think grinding makes it the majority of a game's runtime as an RPG, which is so ridiculous and insane to even make that claim. But there's a weird relationship when it comes to how grinding functions in RPGs and how people interact with it depending on the franchise. So we're going to go more into that. It's a little more clear cut to understand. Final Fantasy. You go to enemy, you fight enemy, get experience, level up, done. Simple. It's more simplified, easy to understand. Is reporting the grind? Not necessarily. You're just fighting enemies, not trying to avoid things. There are also side content you can do in order to better your character as well, depending on the entries. So there's stuff you can do to build your character. And there's also essentially some games that limit how much you can get, actually XP you can get. Like Final Fantasy 13, so I don't talk about much, but Final Fantasy 13 actually limits how much EXP the party can get per chapter. Like you still get more EXP, but you can't actually spend it and level up in the Crystarium until after you've beaten the chapter, which party members might be able to reach their full potential until after you've already beaten the game entirely. So there are some stuff like that when it comes to how RP EXPs are handled. Or something from Final Fantasy 15, where the game is so piss easy with the amount of items they give you, XP might not even exist because you just basically be immortal. Or something from Final Fantasy 16, where some people feel like because of how powerful Clive is everything, that feels like the whole RPG aspects of Final Fantasy 16 may as well be moot because it's not really going to do much for it. Final Fantasy also other exceptions, like Stranger of Paradise, where your level is based more on your gear, so it's basically more the level of the actual stage you're going to will give you higher level gear, which will increase the level of your party members, Stranger of Paradise. So there are also more experimental systems they try to do, or what a Final Fantasy, where the level of your characters is basically the level of the whole entire stack put together, and that increases your strength of the whole entire party. So there are unique ways other games in the Final Fantasy franchise try to handle when it comes to one entire, EXP system and everything. Final Fantasy 2 is still having level ups for the characters, instead just has you increase the stats and spells directly, which I don't get flagged mostly because it's different than usual style, but it also, an idea that hypothetically was made to try to reduce grinding and level ups, ironically increases it, and increase every individual stat. Granted, it could make characters specialize in one thing specifically, but people generally don't do that. They want to have the characters be good at everything, which makes the process take longer to keep doing the same task over and over in order to better their characters. So it's kind of one of those things where you can see the idea that developers are going for, but then you can see the min-maxing aspect that people go for, ends up making that system kind of more of a slog rather than anything else. Final Fantasy VIII also reinvent the wheel with a junction system. Instead of getting EXP, you just get spells, whether it be from draw pools or drawing from monsters or from items, and use that onto your stats, with certain spells actually being better at certain stats, or certain spells, let's say stats elements, making it so your regular attacks will carry that stats element into combat, which is all a super cool idea. The problem then becomes the fact that since spells are basically your stats, it's a one get them, which can either be drawing from monsters, takes a while, drawing from draw pools, which you don't know where they're gonna be, but they're all over the world, or getting them through items, which people think the best way to get through the items is to play that mini game Triple Triad. But at the end of the day, you're still basically grinding even if it's not through EXP. Like, the EXP system in the game doesn't really benefit the player, it makes monsters more stronger. Which granted, the stronger the monster, the more powerful the spells that you get from drawing from them. But at the end of the day, you're still either drawing from monsters, which takes a while, finding draw pools, which take a bit in order to respawn, or play Triple Triad, which is still grinding. I don't care what anyone says about Triple Triad, if you're playing a card game just in order to get resources to progress the game, congrats, you are grinding. It doesn't matter if you're playing a card game in order to do it, you're still doing the same thing. So it's kind of one of those things where no matter what you do, there's still a grinding aspect to it. And at least with drawing spells from enemies, you can hypothetically still do that while keeping going to the dungeon. You can still go to a dungeon, find a cool spell, and want to draw it. Yes, it halts your pace, but at least you're also moving to the dungeon as opposed to Triple Triad, where you have to find a fully participate player of Triple Triad. So it's one of those weird aspects because of the junction system where hypothetically it should make levels and EXP moot, but ends up creating a bigger problem because of how you need to get more spells, you don't know what spell's going to do what, so instead of playing with a guide, you already know what to look out for and what not to use and what not to get. It's a being kind of a more ironic sense of creating grinding while trying to remove grinding. Now the indie game leads to the painful, which its way of trying to circumvent grinding is more the fact that enemies just generally don't really respawn in this game unless certain circumstances, and only those certain types of enemies can respawn entirely. You also have some enemies that can actually permanently kill off party members in the game, but there are a lot of optional party members you can recruit in the game to make up for the fact that there will be points where a character could just immediately just drop dead beyond their control. So there are ways to simulate it, because it is a game that I believe the developer did state how they wanted to quote-unquote avoid the trappings of other RPGs, which, whenever someone says that, sounds like they're always talking out of their ass, being pretentious. But I feel like at least the Painful actually does pretty well. It's a very good game. It's one of those things where it's like trying to avoid just overgrinding and stuff. You have more things you can resource. You also have the one-time rest mechanic, which does the RNG aspect of when party members could get kidnapped, you have to go to the effort, try and get them back, or end up letting them die, you have the resources to get them back. So there are ways to do to circumvent grinding and start grinding in the game, especially with how risky certain enemy types you fight can be in the game. It's painful. You can also have Brad also take joy, which can circumvent difficulty issues you have, although you may also want to try and not use joy because some people want to go on a joyless run, but you can use that in a sense to try and bolster your offense and just obliterate anything in your path you have an issue with, especially if Brad's having withdrawals at that point, which will drastically reduce his stats. So there are ways to circumvent it without just, fighting some enemy over and over to get more experience. The Xenoblade series will give you bonus XP just for finding new stuff in the world, as well as just doing quests, so there are inspirations to just explore and find cool stuff and get more EXP. But then you had Xenoblade 2, which added the fact that you get bonus EXP multiplier, depending on how well you do with chain attacks during the end of a boss fight, just overkilling the enemy. Then, there's a bonus EXP system, we can also cash in bonus EXP as well. So there are more and more ways to keep your party filled. The only downside is Xenoblade 2 doesn't mention some of these things, explain some of these things very well, so it could be an issue, but it has them, which is super cool. Then got carried over to Xenoblade Chronicles 3, where the more over damage you do with a trade attack, the more XP you get that you can use later. So it's a pretty cool system of trying to keep your characters more properly leveled up, without needing to do anything also extra like a little grind or anything. So it's a super cool system of how they handle it. Beyond Tensei, which only have bosses that can be way over leveled higher than you, but you can still beat them based on actually using either strategies or proper planning with your party setup, whether you're exploiting their weaknesses properly, or some of the game using status elements to just help obliterate them. So there are ways to circumvent a level gap in SMT. It's one of the things that Shin Tensei 5 actually got, the original release, actually got flack for, where strategy that matter, all that matter was your levels. If you're just like higher level enemy, you can obliterate them. But SMT 5 Vengeance, they fixed that, so you can actually use more replanning your strategy and what demons go with what combination for the boss in order to do that. So you can circumvent the level gap. I'll say the same thing with something like Delta Armor 1 and 2, which your party formation and your strategy going in matters more than the actual number stats that you have, which is a super cool way of handling it. Just make it more, the player has more control on the fight based on how well they're using their mind rather than just using the numbers on the screen, which is a super cool way of handling it. The Legend of Dragoon has enemies not give much EXP. The bulk of your experience in that game will come from the boss fight specifically. That's where you get the bulk of EXP you get to level up everything. Regular enemies are more so fodder for leveling up additions or getting more SP to level up your Dragoon forms. But it's just one of those things where, I mean, the main method, the main demonstrating thing in the entirety of Legend of Dragoon is magic items. Not even your magic spells, your magic items you get. That's why you have a limited inventory. But it's one of those things where people talk about how boss fights use the bulk of the EXP in the game, which is why if someone's KO'd and you have a boss fight, that is truly devastating, because that is them being set back a good bit without that EXP for the boss fight. So that game, grinding for EXP specifically, isn't really worth it in the slightest, because once again you get so little EXP that you better also just waiting until the next boss fight, and because of that it doesn't really feel like boss fight necessarily a roadblock or you're too low leveled, because of the fact that that's where most of your EXP comes from to begin with. So this feels more streamlined in that sense. Persona 1, where the character who does the most work in a fight gets the most experience. Like, rather than just giving each character equal experience, it depends on how much effort they put in the fight. Maybe the characters you have basically for support basically either have to just waste very much SP doing support things even if not necessary, otherwise I get little XP. But you also have the persona ranks, where you're incentivized to keep using your persona more and more in order to rank it up, because that too has its own EXP system that goes up to like rank 8. So you need to use persona more, which also disincentivizes using stuff like, oh, your melee weapon or your guns. So it's a whole entire weird system where one person will get the bulk of the EXP, leaving people behind. Then you have the fact that you need to increase your persona ranking, and may incentivize you just using one person or to increase their persona levels over and over, especially late in the game. And it's just like a whole entire weird aspect when it comes to this. Some of the fact that Persona 1 is also known, at least in the PSP version, where the final section of the Subbec route at least has a way higher difficulty spike compared to everything else in the game. So you definitely also want to also level that up higher and higher for that entire segment. It's a weird way of handling EXP where, oh, it's basically who does the most effort, but let's get to account like, oh, healers or support people, the kind of thing. Because of how it factors in the XP diminution. Speaking of difficulty spikes, this would be a topic that people generally have when it comes to being wary of JRPGs. The idea that they have to grind because of the inevitable difficulty spike. So I'm not going to go over some notorious difficulty spikes that people talk about throughout the years. This is going to be very specific and drawing into different games, so bear with me with this one. Next, will be spoilers for Eternal Punishment, so I'll put a timestamp here. This is your spoiler warning, which is me doing it out of kindness, because not a mandate. This is me doing it just so you go to a spoiler that game. Okay? Ready? For the people who are ready for still here? Okay? And here we go. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment has the Metal Trio boss fight. Boss fight is generally cited as one of the most difficult boss fights in Persona, because you are facing these whole entire replications of 3 members of the Sync cast, and they're using their ultimate personas, which means they have personas not only doing powerful attacks, but they also have secondary effects. Like one can also apply charm, one can also apply confusion, one can also apply instant death, get fucked. So it's one whole entire aspect people should complain about, is the fact that this is a way more powerful opponent that needs to be faced throughout the entire game. And yeah, nothing else more powerful than this entire game actually whatsoever, but it's one of those entire aspects where people feel like it's basically a grind spot. I gotta go grind. I mean, it's Persona, so ideally just make personas that would counter their abilities. You can see what they do and be like, okay, I need Maya to have this, I need Katya to have this, buff it with this, blah 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 blah. Get the idea. But some people feel like, no, that's just over level, just overpower this one entire aspect. And it's like, no, it's Persona. You just kind of get new personas, make something that fits what you're looking for, the boss is happening, what the boss is doing. But so what they see it as being like, or Persona 2 Eternal Punishment is a more grindy game because of the fact of the Metal Trio exists. Next one will be spoilers for Persona 4. So yeah, spoiler warning, you know, third courtesy call, not a mandate, you know, so I guess it's 4, Persona 2. Okay, ready, let's go. Shadow Yukiko from original Persona 4 is one I see people bitch about as a difficulty spike in JRPGs for years, and I never understood it. If people complain that she's too powerful, not really. The fact that you have Chie, who has a weakness to fire, which is true, because a persona that has Red Wall to protect her, or the fact that she has the Prince, Those people complain about this boss fight being way too difficult, and that Atlus really went overboard difficulty in the first real boss of the game. And the funny part is, you're not going to make a persona for yourself that is resistant to fire. You're just one that has a red wall on top of that fact. And the fact that if you actually see the fusion forecast calendar, whatever it's called, I don't even remember, there actually is a date where you can make a persona that is perfectly designed to counter Shadow Yukiko's entire thing. And people complain about this boss fight being ridiculously difficult when it's really not. The game, you're not using what the game is really giving you, the tools giving you. Then, Persona 4 Golden took this boss fight, decided, okay, we're gonna change the Prince's weakness. Alright, that's fine. We're gonna give Yukiko some weakness, so you can do all attacks on her, kind of overboard. And we're also gonna make it so the Prince runs away mid-fight, which, you know what, I actually like that. That's actually pretty cool detail. But just the fact that it's like made the boss fight way easier when it already wasn't that much of a difficult boss fight to begin with. So I guess some people bitch about it. They'll just freaking nuke it from the stratosphere. It's one of those things like for years, people over high the difficulty of Shadow Yukiko. It's like, oh my god, engage with the video game, please! Not boss fights are heavily grind to compensate over the difficulty of the boss fight. Use the mechanics the game gives you! XIII from Tensei Vesperia, a boss fight that many to this day still despise, and you know what? I'm right there with them. So, rumor has it, can't say confirmed, so I'm saying rumor. Rumor has it this boss fight was made difficult on the game's original demo intentionally. So in order to be like this big hard boss fight at the end trying to motivate you to fight it for real, get the victory in the full game. But they never altered its stats or anything when the game came out for 360, never altered it came out on PS3 in Japan, and never altered it came out on Definitive Edition on PS4, Xbox One, PC, and Switch. Leaving this boss fight to be a huge outlier of Vesperia, where it's the most difficult thing in the entire game, and literally has no reason being this difficult whatsoever. Most because of the fact that at this point, you don't really have a lot of moves you can work with. This thing has also backup with it, and the idea is to stun it with the flowers, but one, you're going to stun yourself in the process, and two, the stuns don't help a lot when it comes to it, because you still need to do a lot of damage or to even kill the thing to begin with. So this makes this thing very difficult. Yeah, I agree with people, this one sucks and pretty much encourages you to just end up grinding for a bit in order to pretty much try and out-damage it, but there's nothing else in the game like this thing. That's why it feels like such an outlier, such a weird thing to put in the game, let alone this relatively early in the game. This is like 10, that is like probably like 10 hours into the game or something. So to put this thing really here, like, just feels like an outlier. It's like, yeah, I understand people complain about this boss fight. This boss fight is just ridiculous. Black card for Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1, which I've seen people try to defend this boss, saying, now you can get over to fight this boss easily, just casual playing the game. Not really, because by the time you fight this boss, you'll be like level 8. Recommended level is level 13 to 15. So, no. This boss fight is an outlier. Instead, people complain about this being grinding, especially when the Neptunia games generally are more on the more so balanced or slightly more on the easier side. So, I mean, a boss fight like this, let alone for a remake from the first game, completely stands out as being like, wait, what? Especially with difficulty. I see some trying to say that, oh, this boss fight is difficult in order to try to buy the DLC characters, Puri and Pishi, who are originally from Neptunia Victory, but not really, especially since those characters are OP as hell in the DLC, so it's kind of a weird mixture, but generally, yeah, it's one of the boss fights that you get to grind, but again, I'm using an example for Neptunia. How many people out here are actually playing Neptunia, considering it's a more niche RPG franchise? So, I am scraping to the bottom of the barrel. I want to find a real example of a difficulty spike boss fight and RPG here, aren't I? But yeah, Black Card definitely counts as that. I'll give people that one. Spoilers for Final Fantasy XIII. Once again, courtesy call for a spoiler warning, not a mandate. Okay, ready? Here we go. Bartending list in Chapter 9 of Final Fantasy XIII. One I've seen in person, people tell me, is a massive difficulty spike that highlights the Final Fantasy XIII requires you to grind heavily. How do you grind heavily in a game that caps how high your level can be to begin with? And two, no, just buff the party, and when he's about to do his big attack, just attack the things on the side to try and weaken the attack, and it's pretty much, it's not much to the fight, at least that I recall. There's not very much to the fight itself, so I don't understand how this is a big complaint. Attack the side things, buff your party, like, simple fight. I don't get it. How is this a boss fight people have apparently usually complain about instead of a big difficulty spike from Final Fantasy XIII? A game where your level is capped for every chapter of the game, so you can't even outgrind things because you can't grind in the game. I don't get it. Spoiler warning for Persona 5 Royal. I wasn't sure what I count this one, but you know what? People can mention this one too much. I gotta mention it. Once again, spoiler warning is a courtesy and a mandate. Okay, you ready? Let's go. Shadow Rakuma from Persona 5 Royal has been the most bitched about boss fight I think I've seen in a long ass time. Oh my god! People complain about this boss fight being ridiculously unfair because of the fact that you have to defeat the freaking enemies that he throws out with a certain amount of turns, or they run away and get replaced with full HP variants. Or the fact that he targets one person at a time in order to freaking deal more damage to that one person. Here's the thing. Don't just spam the same AoE attack over and over on the enemies. Get you baton passes. I know you have at some point been getting items that require elemental attacks. Use those just to get the one more and have the last person who was now fully buffed from all the baton passes in order to do a more powerful AoE attack. Oh my god, don't just spam the same AoE attack over and over, especially when he casts Rakukaja on one of the enemies. He's targeting one person. Whatever, that's one person he's targeting, and everyone else the rest of the party. Doesn't even matter at that point, just freaking deal the damage. Or, you can go make personas that can counter stuff going on. Whether you make personas that counter the elemental weaknesses, or personas that just have powerful AoE skills. Like Haru joins in this section of the game, and she's a powerful AoE gun skill. You can just use baton passes and give that to her so she can do that for more damage. Or, you can have Joker make a powerful persona that has like Megidola, and then use that instead. like, there's so many ways to circumvent this, and people keep complaining about it because they just push the one button over and over and expect to win. So when the game requires to actually put an effort, and then bitch about it, and I don't get it. I don't get what this boss fight is saying. It's very difficult. So therefore, I wrote not a difficult game. It's not a grinding game at all. It can be grinding, you just want to make powerful personas, but that's you just want to have fun with the systems the game gives you, all the freedom you can do with the persona system. But this boss fight is not difficult at all, especially compared to everything else in the game. Like, it's probably like a bit more difficult by comparison, but not a whole lot. The game gives you so many tools to work with. Use them! I just don't get it. How is this boss fight seen as some arbitrary freaking spike? Oh my god, why would they put us in this kind of game kind of thing? It's like the only boss fight of course actually put any thought into it. How did y'all get passionate about a Rame if apparently this boss fight is too powerful? Spoilers, Yakuza like a dragon. And this will be the last example I'll put up in the whole entire video, but spoilers for like a dragon. Again, courtesy call, not a mandate. Just, you get the idea of spoiler buffer moving on. The Chapter 12 boss fight of Majima Saejima is 1000% a difficulty spike that requires the grind. Nothing in the previous chapter was anywhere near this difficulty, and before this section, they literally introduced an entire grinding arena for basically for that sole purpose on this boss fight. I get the idea that you want these characters to feel as powerful as they should be in canon, but making the player just literally grind, or not even having like an actual dungeon beforehand that require the player to just get more experience throughout it, or to even build up to this point, feels incredibly stupid and pretty much short-sighted. So yeah, that is blatantly, you have to grind in order to get past this one entire encounter, because not much you can really do, especially since you don't expect a high level difference, let alone this massive 2v4 boss fight. That, yeah, they really screwed up on this one. Now, despite grinding in RPGs generally being disliked as things that people fear about, like I've seen people who their first time games like games like Chronicles 4 Golden immediately just put the game on very easy mode on the idea of they don't want to grind. The game even started playing the game, you know what the game even like, or even have to grind to begin with. It's Chronicles 4 Golden. They added things to pretty much alleviate difficulty all across the board from before, so that's very ridiculous. But let's talk about games where people actually enjoy the grind, people actually have fun with it. Obviously, one to look at is the Disgaea franchise, where people jokingly say how the majority of smart time in Disgaea is grinding, but it is also kind of true with the fact that you have to let the item worlds, you can improve items by going through more dungeons, more battles, and all that whole entire stuff. There's also a lot of side and post-game content that rewards you for doing the grinding, on top of the fact that the grinding is more, I want to say like more streamlined how they do it, so you can do it more efficiently to where it is still grinding, but it feels like there's stuff to do it for, as opposed to like grinding just for a hard story boss fight, whatever in the game, or just grinding just to dominate everything. You're grinding for more content. You're doing it to get more out of the game, to get more stuff in it, which is a super cool way to do grinding. And not like grinding is something that's very generally light when it comes to how this guy handles this one entire gameplay, which is a super cool way to see how grinding is handled. Digimon World 1 and Digimon World Next Order, where in those games, you're a part of Digimon, and it's been no games with that part of Digimon, but whenever they die, whether it be from getting KO'd too much or old age, they reincarnate, and they're able to pretty much take some of their stats they had before into a new Digimon they form, and go on a different evolution line, especially to like Next Order, where you get more upgrades for Digimon and stuff, but also get the ability to do EXE, which are temporary freaking fusions that you can do, which is a super cool way of handling it. And basically, you are essentially grinding, so you have to just go to kind of Digimon, go to the freaking gym places, or freaking fight a Digimon or increase their stats, but you get more different possibilities when you're doing it, and you also have full-time aspect to take care of Digimon. It's more of a Tamagotchi sim on top of just being an RPG, so it's a super cool way of handling it, and I enjoy Digimon World games, Digimon World 1, Redigitize, and Next Order. It's a super cool way of handling this whole entire system. The Pokemon franchise, where people love level grinding at Pokemon in order to level their Pokemon and get new evolutions for them, in order to see what they gotta get, what kind of abilities you get, what kind of things, you know, whole appeal, get your Pokemon, making new teams, making new formations. And people just love level grinding in these games. People just love grinding in these Pokemon games. At least, that's what it feels like. because the more Pokemon games try to include more standardized RPG mechanics, like EXP for the whole entire party, the more it receives backlash from the fan base who just want to level up Pokemon as slow as possible, using the whole entire single out Pokemon, pulling it back thing method, or to get more experience, because that's not by itself. So, from what I've seen, Pokemon fans love grinding because any sort of thing done to mediate grinding or make it more efficient is seen as a bad thing because people go, I'm not bonding with my Pokemon and I have an EXP share for the whole entire party. It's like just all these frustrating scenes where a basic mechanic for RPGs is seen as a bad thing. People complain about it because they think it's not seen as bonding, even though if you're talking out of your own ass because the whole bonding aspect. But for them, grinding is the way of the game. Grinding is what they love to do in the game or the game more Pokemon, and the idea of trying to do things more simple with the one-time EXP share is something that's a no-go because they wanna apparently feel like they earn the evolution, even though I swear Pokemon fans also use the freaking level up candies, but I guess those don't count, and also Pokemon's being too easy in general, so feel like you earned something in Pokemon, citation needed. But Pokemon fans love grinding. It's in the whole game. I don't know, my brother tells me how it's actually a fact that point, because when he plays Pokemon, he makes entire new teams for different sections of the game to try out new Pokemon and try new formation, new teams for gyms. As opposed to some people who just spend the entire game with one team, with the entire game. But hey, Pokemon fans love grinding. They love just grinding out levels, every Pokemon, all of them. So that's something that I want to know. So it's basically, if you want to talk about why RPGs has one entire stigma of grinding, with, some example, we see some games have a stigma of grinding when it comes to being a lot of what the game has to offer, especially when it comes to Pokemon being a very popular franchise, one of the most popular in the world, but also the fact that some things get stigma of you have to grind horribly in this game, when reality is you should probably pay more attention to the actual mechanics of the game itself, rather than just overpowering it with numbers. So that's what I want to talk about this whole entire thing. Also, I didn't even originally intend to talk about the freaking difficulty spikes argument thing for this video, but hey, come up with more ideas of making stuff, Alright, that's all I gotta say about this whole entire topic.